Griever here. This is a quick PSA about safety. Remember, when modifying an Nerf blaster or anything really, proper safety measures should always be taken, and kids, always ask your parents before using any tools or power tools. So be safe, happy modding, Nerf on. What's up, YouTube? Griever here, and this is going to be the video that I said if you wanted a mod guide for it, I will do it. So here it is. We are going to be modifying this Nerf Mega Magnus and be making a copy of the Big O that my friend Beaker did, only it's going to be the way that I do it. So let's just go to the workbench, go over what we're going to need for this, and start getting to work. Okay, so we're here on the workbench, and we're ready to proceed. We have the Mega Magnus here, which before we proceed into opening this, just going to go over, obviously, the stuff that you will need. This, being the main thing, is a given. What you will also need is this, 1/2 inch CPVC. This is going to be the breech along with our barrels. But, and also along those lines, you'll need this. This is a 1/2 inch CPVC, this is a 3/4 to 1/2 inch CPVC coupler. Pretty cheap. You can pick these up at Home Depot and Lowe's. I got these at Home Depot, and they don't come like this. They actually come in little baggies, and you can see right there, CPVC coupler size, 3/4 to 1/2 inch. And you only get one in a bag, but again, they're pretty cheap. They're, I think, like 38 or 40 cents, something like that. So you need that. Now, this is where it kind of gets a little optional. We, for the purposes of this mod, are going to be using this as the front coupler. Yes, you can use a 1/2 inch coupler in lieu of this, since we are dealing with 1/2 inch CPVC. The reason I'm using this coupler, and I will show you right here, is because of this. This is the 1/2 inch, and it just drops right in. Yes, you can seat it a little better. You don't have to, you can just put it right up to where the CPVC coming out of the barrel down there is going to go right into it. However, at this point, it's really loose, and you're going to have to center it, and I don't want to deal with that. So I go with this option because with this little lip right here in the front, this coupler literally sits perfectly in place. But you can also use a modular barrel system now. So instead of just having a piece of CPVC sticking out of it, you can either seat it into some 1/2 inch PVC and one wrap of electrical tape, and this will sit fine. Or if you want to just stick straight with CPVC, get a 1/2 inch CPVC coupler, and it will fit in with the same looseness as a piece of PVC. And again, one wrap of electrical tape and a little bit of epoxy, and you will sit this in place. And this way you can just use CPVC for your barrels and not have to worry about trying to fit in to a piece of PVC or magic PVC or however you want, whatever you want to use for it. So there is that. But for the purposes of this mod, we're just going to be utilizing this for now. So we have those pieces. You're also obviously going to need some screwdrivers to open up the blaster, because we are going to be opening it up. You will also need, now this is optional, I have this, which is an HDX pipe cutter from Home Depot. This cost me maybe about 11 bucks, and it was a great investment, because when I do a lot of work with barrels and all that kind of stuff for my DIY or NIC blasters, however you want to call them, this is just a really great go-to tool, and it's not that expensive. So honestly, I personally think it's well worth the investment of 12 bucks for something that will definitely cut through a lot of the materials you need to cut through. You will also need, and this is a definite given, some electrical tape. You will need epoxy. Optional will be some super glue. This is pretty much just to kind of like hold things in place and then put a ton of epoxy around it. So I will be actually utilizing this. Some sandpaper to just remount the end of the breech a little bit, where it's going to connect from the inner barrel here to where you load the darts into this piece of the CPVC coupler. So, and then just something to measure your materials with, because I'm going to try and give best I can measurements on these. So that's really everything we need here. So I'm just going to open this up, and then we will start measuring out our materials and start getting things put into place. Okay, just real quick, for anyone who has never opened up one of these before, now you do have the slide up here, which does actually hide, I think it's 1 or 2 screws underneath the, there are 1 or 2 hidden screws underneath the slide. It's not as difficult to get under this slide as it is, like, let's say the Retaliator or the Recon, because this slide actually just can pop right off. It's held into the side plate here, just literally with a little snap, and it comes out very easily. So you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to figure it out. And it's not 2 screws, it was just 1, which is all the way in the back here. So you definitely need to take the slide off in order to get that screw out. So I'm going to finish unscrewing this, and then we'll be back. Okay, so I got all the screws out. Now, this front part here did get a little stuck for me. I don't know if it's because my Magnus is old or if it's one of the newer ones. Truthfully, I don't remember when the hell I actually got this thing. But the internals are going to be the same for basically any Magnus you actually get, whether it be the red one, the Sonic Ice ones, or the Zombie Strike ones. So once you open it up, you will notice that besides all the screws falling out if you didn't take them out, is on this side there are 2 little springs here that actually work for this part of the blaster, which is your magazine feed for the internal blaster. Now, we are going to be keeping this piece of the blaster because this actually does help keep this from like kind of going off. I'm sorry, let me take this piece off. It actually keeps the barrel from like kind of going off center a little bit. So this is actually a good thing to keep in. I know Beaker recommended it on his, and I'm keeping it on mine. Now, once you take out the barrel assembly, the spring will definitely come out. Just set this aside for now. We will be working with that, just not at the moment. You do have a bunch of different locks here and all. We're not messing with the trigger system, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, on this side of the blaster, you also have another one of these dart guides or dart covers, whatever. Basically, the thing to keep your magazine from launching darts out when you prime back the slide. These we are removing because if you leave these in, you will not be able to actually load things into the breech. So these are going to be gone. But then we will also need to remove these springs. Basically, any kind of pliers will do. And unfortunately, I put mine away and my microphone is now blocking it. So I am just going to get absolutely ridiculous and take them out with these. So these springs you will not be needing. And take them out on both sides as well. I love how one just really didn't want to leave and the other one was just like, oh, to hell with it, I'm out. So, and these springs, if you want to keep them for catches, fine. I honestly wouldn't recommend them. So those are also just junk. So the shell work here is done. So that can go to the side. What you're going to want to do here is you will want to take out this front assemblies, remove that front yellow piece. This really is just a cosmetic piece. You don't need it at the moment and nothing's getting modded on it, so you can put it with the rest of the shell. For this part, because this is where we're actually going to be attaching the front coupler, which is right here, one thing we're not going to be needing is the dart tooth anymore. So what you can do is just take your screwdriver, unscrew that little screw right there, and you can actually just remove this portion of the dart tooth, toss that. That will also keep this door from popping back up. So once that's down, you can actually kind of leave it as is. There is a tension spring, and if you want, you can try and remove the pin to completely remove it, but honestly, it's not necessary, and I'm just going for as simple as possible at this point, so that you can just leave right there. Now, the front coupler, I'm going to put into place with some super glue first, just to kind of like hold it in place, and we'll do all the epoxy when we do the main breech there. So a little bit of super glue, and it doesn't have to be neat, it's just got to hold your coupler in place. So just hold it there for a minute, and then once you think it's okay, you can move it. Make sure it is centered and does look straight. So, got super glue on my hand. I hate when I do that. But it's pretty straight, so we can set that aside. And now we are going to work on the breech itself. Now, I measured off when I did the big O from about where it goes into here. You need maybe about, I think it was 11 inches of barrel, and if I'm off on that, then this is going to be a learning experience. So what I'm going to do here is I'm taking my 11 inches, and yeah, that's way much longer than I had originally anticipated. I did measure off from the lip here up, should only be, where's my notes? Should only be about 1 6/16 inches, so about 1.5 inches from here. So you can also just make a mark here and then measure 1.5 inches from there up. So I'm just using my board here, so that's about 3 inches, so about 4.5 inches. So you actually need about 4.5 inches for the breech itself. And just get your pipe cutters. And cut. Now, I will say this. This is not a 100% exact science, because stupid me never actually measured when I did the big O. So 4.5 inches of barrel should work. Now, will you have to maybe trim off a little bit to get it to sit 100%? Yes, that is a very good possibility. But it's basically get to this point, and then you can just kind of like figure it out from there. Now, what you're going to do to actually get this to stay in place is, that's where the electrical tape comes in. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to wrap a bunch of electrical tape right around the 3-inch mark, because this way you'll see it right in there and it's not going to really stick out. And it's literally just put a bunch of E-tape there. I mean, don't be extremely wasteful. Oh, I have scissors right here. Aha. And then we just start fitting. This is too tight, so we'll take some off. That's a little loose, so you put one wrap back on. Like I said, unfortunately, this is not an exact science mod where I can give you complete measurements, complete notes like that. It's really just going to be, you work it until you find what works. So now what you want is a snug fit, but you don't want it to the point of where you can't get it all the way seated, but you also don't want anything too loose. And it looks like that might work. All right, so that works. That will be the barrel itself. This is fine. The air restrictor is activated. It's seated properly. So we're just going with that. Now, for the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to take the spring out. We're just going to dry fit this kind of back in, so that we can slide this back. And we're going to take our front coupler, sit this back into place, and basically just dry fit everything to make sure that it will work properly. So this is where if you need any kind of, like, if anything has to get trimmed, this would be the point of, okay, this is where that's going in now. Okay, it's a little tight, so we will have to remove some of the barrel length. So hopefully it won't be much. Probably just shy of where I made that mark. So we have that down. Try this again. Looks like everything seats forward. I think I do have to take a little bit more off the front of it, but I'm going to do that off camera. And I also need to get stuff to mix epoxy with, so I will be back momentarily. Okay, so we are now on the step of doing the final gluing process, which, before you put everything into place, just the piece of CPVC that's going to be going into the breech here, just take a little bit of sandpaper. You can do this with a Dremel, it will go a little faster, but I'm just doing this for those of you who don't have Dremels. Just take some sandpaper, just sand off the front to make sure, you know, everything is all nice and smooth, you're not cutting yourself. And then just roll it up a little bit here and just stick it in the barrel and just kind of smooth out those edges. And it also adds a little bit of a bevel to it. So there is that. But once that's all done, you can just set that aside. Get your epoxy, because you're going to need a good deal of it. And we're going to mix them up. We'll do this piece first, and then we'll put the piece into the barrel. So there is going to be a bit of, the way I do it, there is a bit of a method to the madness, so to speak. So first things first, put out a bunch of epoxy, put your cap on it so it doesn't leak out again. Now, these stars that I have these little tube front prongs on it. I'm just going to take a piece off of it because it's just going to be a lot easier to apply it. Mix your epoxy up nice and good. Once it goes from clear, once it goes from a translucent to kind of an that opaque-ish color, it means it's good and mixed. what we're going to do is we're going to go on the inside of this first. So you're just going to take a good deal of the epoxy. Try not to get any in the actual piece itself, and just kind of work it in and down around where the coupler is. So, and I just got a buttload of it right into the coupler. Now, normally I would be kind of annoyed at this, but if this does happen, if that does happen, you can always just put in you can always figure out a way to just get a paper towel while it's still wet and just wipe it all out. So again, just be extremely liberal with it. Try and get it into all of the cracks. And again, just be careful where it is around like this area, because again, you don't want to get it in there. Very messy. Thankfully, I have paper towels in my shop. I can just go in and wipe all of that out. Although it's going to be a little tricky from this end of it. So there, that works. So we have our epoxy now sitting in there. And get a little bit more towards the back here. All right, now this is the 5-minute cure, so we'll sit this aside for the 5 minutes to cure up. Next, we're going to mix up a little bit more. We're going to sit our breech into the breech. Oh man, my epoxy's farty. It's really low too. I'd like to just point out, when I did the original Big O, this thing was brand new. I have not done any projects since then, and this is now almost empty. So that just shows you how much epoxy you're actually going to be utilizing. And I'm just going to use the same stirrer, because waste not, want not. And again, mix it up so that it is all, you get the silvery opaque-ish color to it. And then just make sure you put it in the right way first off. Secondly, again, just liberally put it on here, and you can put it directly on the lower part of the electrical tape, because that's where I kind of did mine. Because one, it's going to kind of squish up and also go down anyway. So once you feel like you have a good deal of it on there, just take the breech. You can pull it up if you want, and just make sure you don't drip too much, and just slide it on in. Give it a little twist to really get the epoxy worked in there. Anything that drips, just kind of get rid of it. And now when you let this sit, chances are this little lip right here, there will be epoxy that comes down from it. If that happens, just once it becomes tacky, not sticky tacky, but like tacky where it's kind of solid but it's still kind of pliable, just take a knife or straight edge and just carve it right off, and just sand it down so that it is back to being flush with the blaster, and you're fine right there. So that part's done, and basically so is this mod. The last thing we're going to do is, now it hasn't been a full 5 minutes because I don't believe it has been, but what you're going to do now is, once this is set, is just take the epoxy here and just bring it to the outside of the coupler front here. And just, again, this is just basically for filling in cracks, but also for a little bit more durability. So you have not only the epoxy holding it on the inside, but you have epoxy now holding it on the outside as well. So, and here you don't need too much, because you don't want it leaking all over the place. just enough to, again, fill the gaps, and that's really it. So just set that aside, preferably someplace you're not going to want it, and see where I was talking about where it's going to kind of leak a bit. So I'm just going to wait for that to dry, and then I'll cut it all off. Now, this does set in 5 minutes, so I can sit around and wait 5 minutes and just try and put everything back together. Or I can let this sit overnight and then be totally fine, which is actually what we're going to do. So good night for now, and I will see everyone tomorrow where we just do a little bit of cleanup and final assembly. Okay, so it's the next day. Our epoxy here is dry. That's held in. This is held in. Now I did have some overflow. I trimmed it off camera and all, but you can see here we had some epoxy running. This is why normally what you would want to do is wait, once you do the internal epoxy here, wait at least maybe half an hour before you go to do the outer one. So this way you don't get the drips like I had here. So not that they're going to interfere with anything. Nothing is really blocking where the barrels are going to be going. So we're fine with that. And then I had that little bit of drip down here. It was, honestly, it peeled right off. I just picked it off with a hobby knife, took it right up to here, peeled it right off, no problem. So all we have to do now is just basically reassemble this, build a barrel for the front, and we're all done. So I'm going to reassemble this, and then we'll build our barrel. Okay, so I've noticed something has been a little amiss with installing stuff, but apparently the trigger lock is engaged. I honestly do not know if something fell out or what's going on, but this little red trigger right here is a trigger lock for your blaster. I am actually going to remove mine because this is just becoming a severe pain in the butt, because it is preventing me from actually being able to fire the blaster. Now, there's a little silver screw right here that you do have to remove, and in order to remove this from here, you do have to unscrew it as well. But I am just going to see if I can easily pry out that little piece. This is also the button for the emergency release. I'm getting rid of that too, because for some reason those never worked for me to begin with. So there's that. And then just put the little silver screw back so make sure nothing explodes. As far as I know, that piece that fell out, which is your emergency D prime, as far as I know, that is not a requirement to have in the blaster. So as far as I know, we don't need it. So, but my trigger can move now, no problem. So let's finish getting this reassembled. You do have to put this back in here and slip your front piece back on. And you should be good to go. So yeah, you just got to screw everything back together, and I will see you to build our barrel. Okay, so now we're going to make the barrel for the blaster. Here we have a 6-inch piece of CPVC. Here we have a, let's see, how big is this? This is about a 1-inch piece of what is technically referred to as magic PVC, because it is PVC that slots right into CPVC. Now, what you're going to want to do to make a barrel like this is, if you don't have magic PVC, just sand out the internals of this and the externals of this till they pretty much slot in. Worst comes to worst, if it starts to fit in like this, you can always get a rubber mallet and all and just, you know, pound it in. Other thing you may want to do is just put a little bit of super glue here, or if you have any of the leftover epoxy, just so this way it stays nice and firm. Now, again, the barrel fit on this is going to be loose, so you just take a little bit of electrical tape If I can find the end of it. There it is. Just find a little bit of electrical tape, cut off maybe 1 wrap's worth. This you'll want to do kind of like in sections. You want to just get 1 wrap on here, see how well that fits. Obviously we need more, so we'll do another wrap. Do full wraps and then just kind of cut back from there. But you're just looking for it to be not super tight, but just snug enough to where it's going to stay in place. All right, and that is actually pretty snug. So about 2 wraps of electrical tape on 1/2 inch PVC. Usually we'll get it to sit into a 3/4 inch CPVC coupler. And again, with this system, you're actually able to modify it to where you can actually, where you would be able to just change out the barrels. If you put a stronger spring load and you need a longer barrel, you can swap this one out, put in a bigger one. All right, so that's everything for this. I'm just gonna go back to my normal position and we'll finish it off here. All right, so that's everything for the Mega Magnus mod guide. Your materials are very minimal. The actual mod time is pretty quick. This is basically almost a 1-day build if you really think about it. So hopefully this was simple enough to follow along and I didn't overly complicate things when I didn't need to. And I hope you guys make your own Mega Magnus mods. This is actually a really fun thing to do. I enjoy this new configuration on the Magnus. I always like the Magnus, but this actually does work very well for, you know, a DIY pistol round, or if you can run a breech loading blaster pretty efficiently, then this might be a really good mod for you, just to have a really simple and quick primary. So thank you everyone for staying to the very end of this, and as always, if you enjoy my videos, throw me a like and subscribe, leave me a comment down below, click the little bell to get notified on all of my new videos. And I am going to be coming up on my 100th episode or video special soon, and I will have an announcement on it because I want you, the audience, to help me decide what I am going to do for my 100th video. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Later.